Troy Williamson defends his British Super Welterweight Championship against the pretty boy Josh Kelly. Who wins? Find out Friday, December the 2nd, 9 p.m, live and free on Channel 5.
I'm going to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.
This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. People talking online just concerned about how he is, because it's not like him to miss, I think, 2 or 3 shows on the bounce. So what's been going on with your dad?
He's got an issue with, without going into too much details, based around the bottom of his spine to do with some of his discs. He's had to go and have quite a few different medical procedures on it recently, some injections, which he had last week. The hope at the moment is that might be able to put it right. If not, he may have to have an operation. But I mean, he's in good spirits. He's not in, too much difficulty right now, but it's just quite a lot of pressure on the area. And particularly when, he is 70, he's 71 in February. He won't mind me saying that too much, I hope. He's got to, when you're, I suppose, constantly hosting events and doing press conferences, lots of weigh-ins, lots of moving about, lots of travelling, it can put quite a bit of strain and pressure on it. So he's been told to rest up. That's what he's doing. And as I say, hopefully he will be there on Saturday night. Big empty seat there.
Well, if anyone was going to bring him back, the power of Tyson Fury would do it.
Definitely. I mean, look, we all know he's Tyson's biggest fan and has been his biggest supporter since we've been working with him. So I think he'll be there. I'm hopeful anyway, touch wood.
Yeah. Just mentioning that about the relationship with your dad and Tyson. Obviously, he brought him back to boxing when I don't think anyone else believed in Tyson. Whose call was that in the office? Was it your dad's? And also, just talking about the journey from the Seferi fight through the Wilder fights, conquering America, and then selling out 2 stadiums in the UK.
You have to go a bit further back, because we originally started working with Tyson pre the second fight, which is ours. So the first fight with Derek, and obviously we've got the third one on Saturday. We were Derek's promoter, and Tyson was working with Mick Hennessy. Mick Hennessy won that purse bid. He put on that event at Wembley Arena. I'd say a couple of years later, what was it, 2014, I think the rematch that we did, which was the final eliminator for the WBO title. Derek was with us. We signed Tyson previous to that. And on the basis that he won that, he was then working forward with us going forward. He subsequently obviously went and did the Klitschko fight out in Germany. As they say, the rest is history when it comes to that. Unified the division and was Britain's latest heavyweight world champion. Did phenomenally well. Had his setback and took that time out of boxing, which I think was a real struggle for him mentally, and the character of him to come back from where he was there to where he is now is just remarkable. But it was at the time that he had started talking about that he was going to make a comeback. There was communication going on personally between him and my dad. He and I sat down with the rest of the guys here, and we knew what we felt that he still had to offer the sport and what we could do with him going forward and what he was capable of doing. And we did the great return against Seferi, which wasn't the best fight, but it was a great event. And Tyson just did what he had to do, get that ring rust off, and performed in front of a home packed crowd at Manchester. We then had the rainy night at Windsor Park on the Carl Frampton card, which was another really, really great fight. And then obviously the Deontay Wilder fights and, a couple of other showcase fights in the States during that period of the trilogy with Wilder. First one being in the Staples Center, then the 2 in Vegas. And, obviously Wembley Stadium was a pretty crowning moment for us, particularly this year, having 94,000 people in a stadium. It was just an incredible thing. And I feel very lucky to be involved again in another stadium fight this year with Tyson.
Your dad and everyone here obviously backed the comeback and it's paid off. But after the Seferi fight, what was BT's reaction to sort of your dad and yourselves wanting Tyson to come back? Because they might have been looking at that ringside, especially the non-boxing people at BT, and thinking, what have we done here?
No, I think they trust our judgment, and that relationship that we've got with them is built on trust. And it's, we're now, I think, 7 years into our relationship with BT Sport. That was obviously earlier on in our time with them, but they trust our judgment. That's what they employ us, in effect, by our rights agreement to do for them, is to provide them with a boxing contract of events, regular showcase events for varying levels of talent, bringing them through, trusting our judgment in how to build fighters, how to pick fighters that we think can go out and do things. And yeah, albeit it wasn't necessarily a great fight, the one with Seth Free. It was a phenomenal event, and what we saw most importantly for BT was we peaked at over 1 million viewers on BT Sport that night. And I think what I give them a lot of credit for at the time, BT Sport, is they could have probably run that pay-per-view. I know that we were competing at the time with an offer from Sky, and I think when Matchroom were working with them to work with Tyson, and they were building a potential plan and strategy to go straight into pay-per-view with him. And I think that the fact that we didn't do that, I think it helped open him up to a new audience. People got to know Tyson a bit better. And as I say, it's worked out quite well.
It has been some journey, and it's led to these last 2 fights in the UK, bringing in around 154,000 tickets across Wembley and Tottenham Hotspur. When Usyk said he won't be ready for December, when the Joshua fight couldn't get over the line, was it simply Derek Chisora because he was more marketable than perhaps other names in the division, George?
There's a culmination of things. I mean, firstly, Tyson's a stadium fighter. If he fights here, to generate the revenue, to make the event work financially, he has to fight in a stadium. And obviously, being in December, it's a bit more challenging than it would be in the summer. I think if we were looking at Tyson fighting in the summer, the 60,000 people that we're going to have there on Saturday, I think we'd have been able to get far past that. Tottenham can hold 70,000. The licence is for 60. If we had maybe seen a little bit more demand earlier on, we may have looked to try and increase that licensing capacity with the local council. But I think we ultimately made the decision that 60,000 was probably the number we were going to land on, and it so happens to be what we can go to with Haringey Council. So from the perspective of the event itself, it's worked out tremendously well. I'm really happy with the performance, particularly for the time of year. It's great to just see him back in action in the UK. And this is what I was saying yesterday at the press conference. Like, people should tune in. People need to watch this guy because he's not going to be around forever. And he does say things that can often contradict himself. One minute he's saying he's retiring and the next minute he's not. And we did the round table yesterday with Bob as well. And he was talking about how at the beginning of it that he wants to do a world tour, go and fight a fighter in Germany, then go to Australia, fight an Australian heavyweight, and then in the same breath he's then talking about, well, we could do 5 domestic UK stadium fights, line up Joe Joyce, line up Daniel Dubois. So he's got big ideas and big ambitions. I don't think he's necessarily honed in on what exactly we're going to do next year, apart from move after this, heaven and earth, to make the fight with Usyk.
Said you were very pleased with 60,000 people, especially in the middle of winter and an outdoor stadium. Do you just want to clear up some comments being made online and on various boxing channels about the ticket situation for Saturday, George?
There isn't a lot to really clear up. I mean, we've done 60,000 tickets. That's what we've done. I know that because I see the gate receipts and I see the money coming. If we hadn't have done that amount, I'd be feeling a bit more pressure of going into this event than I am. I'm very happy with the return that we're seeing there. There are, I suppose, tickets that look like they're available on the platform, but that's because when we originally went on sale, we went at 70,000 in the hope that if we saw that demand get to 70, we would be able to lean on the council to expand that gate out to have the capacity at 70. I think I say 70, I think it's about 69, which is what they had in for AJ Usyk. But the demand was for this amount that we're going to have in there. So it is going to look fantastic. There'll be a few spaces right at the top where there are empty seats, and that's not a problem. 60,000 people in December, I think, is phenomenal. I can't remember a time it's ever been done before.
Well, of course, we have no Premier League tomorrow. England are playing in the World Cup on Sunday. So if you're a casual sports fan tomorrow, it sets up nicely. It's actually worked out well for you. However, there could be another argument. If the Premier League was on at the moment, BT could be cross-promoting Fury Chisora 3, the pay-per-view fight across the Premier League game. So how do you think those two dynamics affect pay-per-view sales for tomorrow night?
We've had to work harder than perhaps we did for Fury White to make sure that we got the press and the promotion going into the event to make it obviously financially viable, not only at the box office but for pay-per-view sales. Where we're lucky is, in my opinion, we work with the best promoter in the world, being Tyson Fury. He is the best promoter of boxing I've ever seen, bar none. Phenomenal ability to capture the public's imagination, to get the papers talking about him. He's taken time out of his day-to-day to go down and sit down with the Sun at News International, which I'm expecting to do quite a big feature on him over the weekend. And then outside of that, we do all of the typical stuff that we would do around a pay-per-view, and I think we must be doing something right with the ticket sales that we've done. I think it shows the popularity of Tyson and also the intrigue in Derek. And I'm just going back to that question that you asked about Derek, and does marketability come into things? It has to come into the equation when you're making these fights. I get that there are hardcore boxing fans, let's call them, that would like to have maybe seen Tyson fight someone else from the WBC ratings. But firstly, we have to go for the WBC ratings for voluntaries. And we made the judgment that not only could we have to focus on just whether or not the opponent in the corner is going to be attractive at the box office. Are they available? Can we get a deal done quickly? Will they commit and do the fight and work with us to promote it? Have they got that name recognition to help sell an event alongside Tyson? And Derek ticked the most boxes out of, I would say, quite a short list of people that were available. I mean, I don't have the top 15 off the top of my head, but remembering who is in there and who was not available, particularly with Usyk not being available in December, and that was always the original plan, to fight Usyk out in the Middle East and do the Undisputed then. He asked for more time on that, and that's what we agreed to, hence why Tyson's fighting. But in addition to that, we spent quite a lot of time and energy on the AJ conversations, and we don't need to go over old ground there, but suffice to say, we couldn't get it delivered. The fight isn't happening. So Derek made most commercial sense for us outside of those two.
And would you say he's committed to his promises, and it's been good dealing with him? Because he did make a reference at the launch press conference and in an interview to me last week that he's gagged. So how's he been to work with?
He's not gagged because he's been talking. He's been fine. I mean, I've known Derek for years. He was very kind to buy my firstborn a present when he was born, when he still worked with us. And I've got a lot of time. And I like Derek a lot, and I'm glad that he's getting his shot. I don't sit here and pretend that I think that he wins the fight. I think Tyson wins the fight. You know, we're going to back Tyson. I'd back Tyson right now against any heavyweight. But he's a live underdog. He's got to take this opportunity with both hands. If he delivers for himself, it's life-changing. And full credit to him for stepping up, and full credit for him taking that call, very quickly turning around and saying, yeah, I want to do it. And that's really why we went with Derek, is he showed that ambition to say, yeah, let's just do it.
George, as you say, of course, you're backing Tyson. He's the overwhelming favourite. If Derek puts up a good performance on Saturday night, we don't know whether he's going to carry on after this fight with Tyson. He made some interesting comments yesterday on IFL, where he said BT Sports and Sky Sports are the places to be. And these are his words. He wants to kill DAZN. He said that. Who said that? Derek Chisora. And obviously he had his last couple of fights on DAZN. Would you be interested in working with him moving forward, depending on what happens on Saturday?
I think it depends on the outcome of the fight. Of course it does. How he loses and what he wants to do. I mean, Derek's 38 now. I don't know what his plans and ambitions are afterwards. So if as I expect to happen, Tyson wins, and again, I'm quite confident that will be the case as long as he turns up and does the business as we will all know that he can do. Yeah, I mean, if Derek's going to continue, I still think that Derek's got value in the heavyweight division. No one's going to tell me that Derek's not a capable, good quality, solid heavyweight. There's potential fights with other domestic players in there at various different levels, but he's got to make that decision. That's not for me.
Pay-per-view element. We know the ring walk is due for 9 p.m. For the main event on Saturday, which is a bit earlier than normal. So do you think that helps?
Be interesting. We don't know. Typically, stadium events, 10 o'clock ring walk. That's what you try and get. We, as part of the conversation around capacity and amount of tickets that we could sell, we were restricted to a 9:30 main event start time. So we have to give an hour. We have to, the arena has to be cleared of all boxing content by 10:30. So 9 o'clock, I think it won't affect ticket sales. I think what helps with that in this circumstances is with it being the winter, it's darker, people kind of end up home a bit earlier than maybe they do in the summertime. So I think we're going to do tremendous at pay-per-view. Tyson always does.
I know this is the broadcaster's decision in BT in setting the price point, but it is the highest price point we've seen in the UK for a box office fight. In terms of the main event and the undercard, from a Queensberry perspective, do you think the card justifies that price point, George?
I think the card justifies it because you're watching the number one heavyweight in the world, and if Anthony Joshua or Alexander Usyk can justify a price point that's been set, and that's the market setting that's not us setting that's them BT replicating what that market price is. I think that without doubt Tyson is at that level, if not a higher level than these guys. He's the number one in the division by a country mile. He's the most popular heavyweight in the UK currently in terms of box office sales, in terms of what we're doing at the gate and what we're seeing in terms of how he tracks and how people engage with him as a boxer. In terms of the undercard, we've done what we can within the time that we've got. I mean, we cannot open the doors until 5 o'clock, so I think first bout's on about 5:30. So we've got quite a limited amount of time that we can actually provide boxing on for people in the arena. And what we decided to do is instead of going with a multitude of fights, is try and invest in some quality, good fights, competitive fights on the undercard. And I think the Dennis Berinchyk, Ivan Mendy fight is a very, very good fight. I'm really happy to be working with Dennis. Luckily got that deal done with Alex Krasuk, and we're going to be co-promoting him going forward. I think he sits number 2 with the WBO, so we're going to look to push him. If he comes through this and beats Mendy, which is no foregone conclusion, look to push him for a fight early next year for a world title. And obviously Daniel and Kevin Lerena is a very good fight. I was really impressed with Kevin yesterday. He's very confident, very enthusiastic, likes to fight, thinks he's seen weaknesses in Daniel's style, thinks that speed can beat him. I'm not convinced. I think Daniel wins. I think Daniel's power will eventually get to him. He looked really strong and happy, and that is a very interesting fight. It's got a lot of ramifications. The winner of that is in a very good spot going in next year with the current status of these heavyweight titles, particularly with the WBA, because that is next in the rotational system for, hopefully, the fight between Fury and Usyk. The winner of that, if they're going to proceed with mandatories, will have to fight the WBA champion first in that rotational system. But if for any reason we don't get that undisputed fight made, and I sincerely hope we do and think we will, then Daniel is next in line for Usyk.
Well, look forward to the top 2 heavyweight fights live tomorrow on BT Sport Box Office at Tottenham Hotspur. There will be another heavyweight at Tottenham in Alexander Usyk. What was that?
There's going to be 2 others. Joe's there, Joe Joyce is going to be there, and Usyk. Yeah,
Heavyweight bonanza tomorrow night at Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah, George, you've talked about the undisputed fight. How confident are you, if Tyson is successful tomorrow night, that we get Fury Usyk either February or March next year?
Extremely confident. Our side, Queensberry top rank, Tyson, we're all aligned. That's what we want to do next. So are Egis and Alex Krasuk and the rest of Team Usyk. We've had extensive conversations about that. We had a agreement in principle reached for December, and it was only because of the delay in the Joshua Usyk fight that was meant to be happening in July and that getting pushed to August that we got asked by Usyk to push that back into 2023. But yeah, I think we get that done very quickly. Very quickly.
That's great to hear for boxing fans. A few weeks ago, the co-promoters of Filip Hrgović, Kalle Sauer and Eddie Hearn, took to social media and talked about the IBF mandatory with Filip Hrgović, and those guys wanted to request immediate purse bids. Filip Hrgović went on Sky Sports News yesterday and made similar comments about he wants immediate purse bids requested. So do you see the IBF stopping this fight and being a problem?
No, I think they'll support it. Each of the different sanctioning bodies have shown precedent historically supporting unification fights, allowing unification fights, and in this context, this is the undisputed, but it's still a unification with Tyson's WBC and Usyk's other belts all being unified. They've allowed those fights to take precedent over mandatory commitments, and the most important factor in addition to that is, as I say, the heavyweight division has been working fairly harmoniously since Joshua defeated Klitschko, where he unified the WBA and the IBF. That's allowed Joshua, and obviously he's lost a couple during those, but it's allowed him during his period as heavyweight champion time to not only try and unify titles, but time to fulfill mandatory commitments and obligations of each of the respective sanctioning bodies. And they've been working on that rotational system very successfully. That, for me, is the intent of the sanctioning bodies to continue. That's what's been affirmed to us by the WBA. WBA have confirmed to us that in their eyes, Daniel is next. I believe the IBF will also support that. I know that the WBO will, and that is the order. The order is meant to be, and I expect will continue to be, WBA, IBF, and then the WBO. And that will stay the same until such time that the holder of those titles vacates or decides to do something else outside of doing those mandatories.
Have you had discussions with the IBF about this?
Yeah, quite a lot. Yeah.
As you said there about the WBA being next, where do you think those comments stem from Eddie and Kalla about the IBF and the Hrgovic mandatory?
I think what they're doing is they're going by quite narrow rules within the IBF's rules that state how long a champion has between mandatory defences. But what has to be taken into consideration is Usyk is a unified champion. He had to wait, I think, nearly 2 years from when he was made mandatory for the WBO to get his shot at Joshua. In that time, the WBO gave permission for Joshua not to fight Usyk and to do either other mandatory defences or voluntaries during that period. So all it takes for this fight, the undisputed, to be made is for the governing bodies to all agree that's what they want to happen. And that's it.
George, been heavily reported that this undisputed fight, if it does take place, will happen in Saudi Arabia because they've invested so much in the heavyweight undisputed fight thus far. Can you confirm the most likely destination is Saudi Arabia?
Anything's likely. We're talking to lots of different places. I think the front runner right now is the Middle East. If I'm honest, I think it's difficult to compete with the revenue that they can put up and offer the fighters to make it happen in the UK. But that's not to say that if the opportunity to do it out there was to fall away for any reason, I don't think it will. There's no reason why we couldn't have conversations about it being here. The most important thing right now is that the two teams are aligned. That's the fight we want to make next. That's what we want to do next.
Alex Krasik, promoter of Alexander Usyk, said to me yesterday that Feb 18th to March 4th are, in his mind, the targeted dates for that fight. Do you go along with that?
Yeah, similar time frame to that. I mean, Q1 2023, I think Tyson's going to obviously want to have Christmas off, and I expect he'll want to be back in the gym with a new target at the beginning of the month.
Aside from Alexander Usyk and the undisputed fight that we all want next for Tyson Fury, we heard him talk about Joe Joyce, which would be a very easy fight to make, in-house fight. Deontay Wilder has been ordered to fight Andy Ruiz in an eliminator for Tyson's belt. So could we potentially see Wilder 4 next year, Joe Joyce, maybe even Daniel Dubois?
They're all potential fights. I think you've got to go one fight at a time, though. And obviously, not looking past Derek, we focus on Derek this weekend. The focus then switches to making the undisputed fight, which I think we'll do. I think we'll get that done. And it's then, it's not my decision. It's up to, hopefully, if Tyson wins, obviously I'm going to be hopeful that he beats Usyk. I think he does. It will then be on him what he wants to do. Does he want to retain all 4 belts? Does he want to fulfill those mandatory commitments? Does he want to skip past, I don't know, the IBF one or the WBO or the WBA, whatever he decides? He might decide, you know what, I'm linear champion. I just want to pick and choose who I'm fighting. I've proven that I'm the undisputed number 1 of my era. I don't know. That's Tyson's decision, not mine.
One name I didn't mention at the list is Anthony Joshua, and the general sports fans, you'll know this of course, George, still go on about Fury Joshua. Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua have both gone on record recently and said they still believe the Tyson Fury fight happens next year. What are your thoughts on that, and do you agree?
I don't rule it out. For me, the time to make it was the time we tried to make it, which should have been for this weekend. There was a gap, just opened up because Usyk wasn't available, and I felt that we were going to get it done. Again, don't want to go over old ground. It doesn't, the ins and outs of why it didn't happen are kind of irrelevant. The fact is it didn't. I would never want to be the person that says that fight's not available or not going to be made, because I think it's important that it happens one day. I think it's important for heavyweight boxing in this country that we see that fight. Do I think it happens next year? It could, but I could just so easily see a fantastic undisputed fight with Usyk, and there may be calls for a rematch. By the time that fight's happened, Joe Joyce or Daniel, or both, could have had spectacular wins over very, very established, well-ranked heavyweights. People crying and calling for those fights. I think we'll go with the fights that make most sense for the guys that we're involved in, but it's a fight that I would like to see, of course.
Okay, enough heavyweight talk. Let's go back to Telford and also the O2, where we saw Liam Davis and Dennis McCann both in brilliant wins. Obviously, Liam over Baluta and Dennis bagging the Commonwealth against Joe Ham. Both guys, as fighters, have said they'd take that fight next. From a Queensbury point of view, do you think it happens next, and do we see it at all in 2023?
I think we could see it in 2023. I'm not sure if it's next. The fight we've currently been talking about internally in the office is, and this is not in any formal capacity yet, but I think one that's attractive for the area is to do Liam Davies and Jason Cunningham. Jason, very tough fight with Zolani Tete, and I know you're probably going to ask me about that situation in a second, but talking about that, he vacated that European title to take that step-up fight against Tete, wasn't successful. I think if Jason wants it, I'd like him to have an opportunity to fight for that title that he never lost in the ring. It's a good Midlands fight, really attractive fight. Maybe Bill Dennis on the same card. We've got a lot of good fighters around that division. So there's a culmination of different fighters that can all kind of throw their hat into the mix, and we can look to build and make different fights with. But I think the fight will happen. I think it's a great fight down the road. But next, I don't know. Probably not.
Fair enough. Let's talk about Zolani Tete. Obviously, last time out, brutal knockout of Jason Cunningham. We've learnt since then, there's been reports online that Zolani Tete had failed a drugs test. As his promoter, George, when was your knowledge of his failed drug test?
So I was sitting at my desk where I am now, and I got a call from Matt Rich, our press guy, saying that he's just been asked for comment from Boxing Scene about a report in a South African newspaper that Zolani Tete's failed a drugs test. I said, don't give anything yet, let me find out a bit more. Andy, that works for us, spoke with the board. The board had no knowledge of it at the time. He reached out, spoke with Zolani's manager. He said that there had been some indication from the South Africa Boxing Commission that there was something wrong with a drugs test. At that point in time, we didn't know much more than what we said in the article that Boxing Scene put out. Since then, we're still waiting for some official confirmation. So, as I sit here today, we've not been written to as the promoters of that event by UKAD or by the board, or even the South African Boxing Commission for that matter, confirming that Tete has failed anything. If he has, he needs to go through that due process. If he's to have been found guilty, I'm sure he's going to be serving a ban of some sort. But if he hasn't, I would like to understand where these rumours have come from or reports have come from, because they certainly weren't made in any official capacity to us, which is quite disappointing, and I think certainly needs to be kind of acknowledged, and a little bit more information and communication needs to happen.
So currently, is there no UKAD investigation going on?
I don't know. As I say, as the promoters, we have requested information as to this allegation that was made in the newspaper out in South Africa. What's it about? conversations are ongoing with the board, who are also trying to find out more information, and we go from there.
And just lastly on this, Steffi Bull, Jason Cunningham's manager, what's he said to you about this situation? Because I'm sure he wants to know what's going on.
I haven't spoken to Steffi directly. I'm no doubt's had conversations with the office. Yeah, he wants answers, and rightfully so. And so does Jason, and I'm sure Tete does, and we do. We'll get those answers and find out. And if there is a problem, it'll have to be looked at and reviewed and assessed. But you can't deal with the situation until you got the information, and that's what we're currently still waiting for. It's the promoters of the event. We have not been given any official confirmation of these allegations.
On a more positive note, at the O2 last weekend, Hamza Shiraz's spectacular stoppage win over River Wilson Bent. He said to me last night when I spoke to him, best career performance. He really feels that he's getting strong, explosive, dynamic at 160, and the relationship with Ricky, his trainer out in California, is really going well. So you must have been delighted with Hamza's win.
I thought he was sensational. To do that to a very good British level fighter in River Wilson Bent, who questionably won that fight with Tyler Denny. I think he lost it on a split. Yeah. To do that as emphatically as he did was a real statement. I think he's growing in the weight. He's showing his power. He's athletic. He talks well. He's clean cut. He's just exactly what you want to be working with as a promoter, and I think he's going to go very far.
So in the same division, Denzel Bentley did himself very proud in Las Vegas in a really tough fight, which no one really gave him a prayer in against Janabek. He did very well, as I said. Could we potentially see that fight in 2023? Two London guys, their stocks are both rising, and I think it'd be a pick'em fight between Bentley and Shiraz.
It's a really interesting fight. One that's easier to make because it's in-house at Queensbury. If both guys want to do it, I'd like to see it. And Denzel did a lot of credit for himself in that fight. His stock went up for me. What was quite interesting was when I got the call from Top Rank for the fight for Denzel to have the opportunity to fight Janabek. I wasn't sure what reaction I was going to get from Martin, who's his trainer, Martin Bowers, and his manager. But they were quite confident in the fight because Denzel's always done quite well with sparring southpaws. And obviously with this guy being a southpaw, he fancied it. And you know what? A different night, if he'd started earlier, he might have been able to nick that fight. I think, the right decision was made. I'm not calling controversy on it, but it was far, yeah, but it was a far closer fight than people thought it was going to be. And he's put himself right in the mix for big fights. And a fight with him and Hamza is a big fight next year.
Just lastly on Hamza, I'm not sure how much you can say on this, but it has become a public situation. Hamza did a series of interviews last night, one with myself, where he talked about some recent comments from Amir Khan. Amir's gone on record to various channels, called him arrogant, ignorant. It came out of the blue, to be honest, a bit. There's clearly something going on behind the scenes. Hamza put out a statement as well on his social media accounts. Have you got any comment or thoughts on this situation between Hamza and Amir?
Not really. What am I going to say? I like Hamza is a fighter that we've got a lot of time invested into. I think he's going to go very far. He should just concentrate on his career. Try and put some of this maybe to a side. It's a personal matter between those as individuals. I don't get involved in it. I don't need to.
Artur Beterbiev v Anthony Yarde, a great start for boxing in 2023. See, a very tough ask. Artur Beterbiev is arguably on a lot of people's pound for pound list in the top 10. It would be a massive shock. How much of a chance do you give your man, George?
A big chance. I think people underestimate Anthony. I think people are quick to write him off. I think it was important that when the fight, we knew it was going to get ordered by the WBO, it was quite important that this time round we got Anthony the home advantage. I think that could be a really important factor in this fight. Being in front of your home fans, a packed out Wembley Arena is going to do him all the good in comparison to an interesting experience in, I think it was Chelyabinsk in Russia that we were out for the Kovalev fight. And that he showed glimpses in that fight that he's capable of hurting anyone. He's capable of boxing at a high level. Maybe not that night did he show the discipline or the game plan, that he needed, but that comes with experience. And since then, not only as a boxer, but I think as a person, he's matured a lot. And I think his team has matured as well around him. And I know they're confident. And their confidence gives me confidence. It gives Queensberry confidence that he can do it. It's a very tough fight, really difficult. There's no point pretending it isn't. Beterbiev is a world-class fighter. Like you just said, definitely a top 10 pound-for-pound guy with most unofficial ranking systems would probably put him on there. But I think he can gatecrash it.
I know in October when you wanted to do the fight, you were targeting it for the O2, Beterbiev and Yard, and there were some reports going around that it could be a box office fight. So, first question, why are we going to Wembley Arena in January? And secondly, what was the decision to put it on normal BT Sport rather than box office, which is great for the fight fans? But yeah, those two, please, George.
Well, it was never considered box office. No, we were always going to put this on as a BT Sport event. We look every year to deliver at least one or two what I'd call like kind of flagship events. Those ones like a Yard Beterbiev that maybe questionably could you go and justify it as a pay-per-view. This fitted the mode of delivering a really big rating for our broadcast partner, showcasing Anthony, getting him seen by a huge audience, and hopefully, touch wood, winning the fight, and from there establishing himself as one of the premium fighters in this country. In terms of the switch from Wembley to the O2, it's just availability. We were kind of stuck originally October 25th, I think we were going, around that time anyway. Beterbiev suffered an injury that he had to have an operation on. That pushed him out. He wasn't then going to be available until December. December didn't work for us calendar-wise at Queensberry because of all the other stuff going on. But it was important because he's a unified champion, talking about rotational systems again, he's got to get his WBO mandatory out of the way before the next in the queue is due. And so we had to work within quite a tight time frame of when we could do it, and Wembley was available, that date was available, and that's what we've gone with.
I was out in Dubai a couple of weeks ago where it was complete madness between Jake Paul, Tommy Fury and a topless John Fury. After Tommy's fight in Dubai, Jake Paul went online and put a clear message to Frank Warren on social media saying, you guys as Tommy's promoters pay up the money for Tommy. MVP will sort myself out. Have there been talks with Nikisa and MVP about this fight happening next year?
Yeah, I mean, I talk with Nikisa a few times a week about it. We've received an offer from them, which we're currently looking at, currently go through. Obviously, I want to get this event out of the way. Got to talk to similar people that are involved with Tyson as Tommy. There's a lot of people that work with both of them as siblings, and that's what we've agreed to do, is get this out of the way. Then we'll sit down, address it, engage with Nikisa and try and make it for early next year.
George, you said you've received an offer from them. Most people anticipating this fight to happen in the UK. So was that offer for the UK?
It was not. No, it was for outside the UK, which is what they made it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we can have a chat about that. I can have a chat with your dad about that after the weekend.
Yeah, he's probably a little bit more loose-lipped than I am. So yeah, give him a go. But
definitely is. Last one. World title shot pending for another Queensberry fighter and David Avanesian, December 10th, next Saturday against Terence Crawford. Again, Terence Crawford, arguably number one pound for pound. But we've seen David Avanesian really having an Indian summer lately. So, tough fight, but can your man shock the world?
Anything's possible. He goes in as an underdog, but as a very live underdog. And everyone over here, particularly in the UK, knows how capable he is and what he's been doing recently to a lot of the British guys and European guys. That form, that kind of, I would say, he can be quite vindictive almost in the ring. The way he goes about people when he gets them going, he's quite ruthless, and that's got him this shot. And I'm really happy for him because this is a life-changing moment for him. If he goes and does that business, it's what dreams are made of. So we're all rooting for him, but it's a really tough fight. We all know how good Terence Crawford is. But yeah, let's see how he goes.
Okay. And as it is your last event tomorrow night for Queensberry, how would you assess the year? It's been many ups, many downs in boxing this year for various reasons, but from a BT and Queensbury perspective, how would you assess it?
I think it's been really good. It's been long. I'm quite tired. This is the fourth one on the spin, so as much as I'm looking forward to Saturday, I'm quite looking forward to Sunday as well and having a break. But no, it's been a really strong year. I've loved seeing a lot of the guys get opportunities. I've loved seeing a lot of them take those opportunities, and some that are obviously going to have to try and rebuild. You know, we didn't talk about Zach Parker. He suffered a terrible injury last weekend with his wrist, and he's now subsequently had surgery on that. He will come back, but at the same time, you have some disappointing nights like that. You've got great nights like Joe Joyce beating Joe Parker in what a lot of people thought was a fight maybe too soon or not realistic for Joe to win, and he just completely outclassed him, in my opinion. It was a great fight. Like Joe Parker as a person, not so much his team all the time, but he's a very good bloke. But I'm thrilled for Joe Joyce. I'm thrilled that Daniel's going to get an opportunity to defend his title in the UK in front of a packed out Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Shame it's not the Emirates. And you know, to have Tyson out again, 2 stadium events in 1 year with him, the king of the division, it's been a really good year.
And what would the final message be? We're nearly 24 hours away from Fury and Chisora's ring walks. If you're on the fence about tuning into BT Sport box office tomorrow, or if you're in the Tottenham area, so there's a few tickets still left, the final message for people to tune in tomorrow night.
Just enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. It's heavyweight boxing. You never know what you're going to get. Tyson is one of the most entertaining people in sport, not just in boxing. From the ring walk to the performance he puts on to some of the celebrations afterwards, touchwood, once he hopefully beats Derek. He is a born entertainer. I'm excited to see Daniel. I think the fans should be excited. They should be getting behind our British heavyweights. Tune in and enjoy a really good night of boxing.
George Warren, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV. Look forward to a great night at Tottenham Hotspur, live on BT Sport box office tomorrow, and hopefully we'll speak soon. I'll probably speak to your dad, to be honest.
Probably will.
Cheers. Thank you.
Midnight on Channel 5. Troy Williamson defends his British Super Welterweight Championship against the pretty boy Josh Kelly. Who wins? Find out Friday, December the 2nd, 9 p.m, live and free on Channel 5.
I'm going to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife and saying completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.